If you're watching this video, you're probably well past the "is Florida a good idea" stage, and now you're trying to figure out, can this move actually work? And you're probably asking yourself things like, how do I narrow it down to the right area? What do I do when I'm ready to actually get there? What do I need to do before I jump on a plane to get over there? And what does the process look like? This video is going to be a step-by-step relocation plan to move to Destin or the surrounding areas. No hype, no fluff, just a clear framework so that you're not having to figure this out all on your own. By the end of this, you should have a very clear idea on what your next move should be and when to make it. What's going on? My name is Andrew, or of course you can call me Mongo, and I run a real estate team here servicing the Emerald Coast, everything from Pensacola to Panama City Beach and everything in between. Now, after helping over 1,300 people move in and out of this area, I've learned quite a lot, and a lot of that knowledge is going to be pressed into this video for you. So I want to go over first who this is for and who it's not for, so that we can make sure we're all on the same page. So there are four main people that this video is going to be extremely good for. All of our out-of-state viewers that eventually want to move down here, this will be beneficial to you in some capacity. The closer your timeline is, probably the more effective this video will be for you. And if you're considering the Destin and surrounding areas and you're kind of comparing areas, this will definitely be for you as well. And if you're curious about timelines and how to execute on the move, then this is for sure for you. But who is this not for? It's not going to be for people that are in early stage curiosity, folks that are looking for vacation planning of some sort. We're not going to have any of that kind of information in here. And for people that are just kind of dreaming, hey, maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now, great. But we'll do remakes of this video down the road so that when the time is right, we'll still be here and available for you. There are going to be 5 main things that we're going to be touching on this video today. First and foremost is a little bit of clarity on what your version of moving here is, whether it's Destin or one of the surrounding areas. We want to get a pretty clear picture on that in this video. Number 2, we'll talk about visiting the area strategically, not just for vacation. Number 3, we'll talk about understanding your budget properly and how that's going to go into your move. Then we'll talk about building a realistic timeline to actually start the move process out here, kind of reverse engineering the timeline a little bit. And lastly, I want to go over some relocation mistakes that I have seen helping over, like I said, 1,300 people move in and out. I believe I've seen it all at this point, but I want to make sure that I'm giving some of those top tips to you guys so that you guys don't make those same mistakes. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the first topic that I want to make sure that we hit on today, and that's clarity. We can't go anywhere if we're not clear on exactly where we're going. Just like with the GPS, you've got a very clear direction, a very clear map. We need to get clear on the areas here on the Emerald Coast. So before any flights, before scouring Zillow too much, and before talking numbers, which we will be talking numbers in this video, that's going to happen a little bit later. Before any of that, we need to get clear on the areas that you might be interested in most. So there are a couple of questions I think are very important to help us start narrowing in on a few of the cities around the Destin area. What I've noticed is so many people have an idea of what their life's going to look like out here, and a lot of times it's centered around the excitement, the fun, the vacation version of this, the water, the tourism. And so this is going to help start shifting that a little bit to make sure that we're in the right area for you. So the first question is, how close do you want to be to the water? Do you want to be able to walk out to the water and sip your morning coffee looking at the beach? Or are you comfortable being 10 minutes away from the water? Or maybe even 30? What about 45? The distance that you're willing to commute is going to make a really big difference on the options and how many of those options that you have. We'll talk about a lot of other things here, but this is where I like to start because generally when somebody's thinking about moving to Florida, particularly beach towns like we have, they've got a certain picture in their mind. So I want you to really think about that. What's the longest commute you'd be comfortable with in order to get to the beach if you're interested in getting to the beach? And number 2, what about the distance to be close to the tourist activities, the restaurants, the attractions, the festivals, to Destin in general, maybe 30A, whichever city you really like here on the Emerald Coast? What does close mean to you? And more so, how often are you planning on visiting that thing, whether it's Crab Island, or whether it's the beach, or whether it's just Destin or the festivals or 30A, whatever it is, how often do you plan on actually visiting? Is this going to be a weekly occurrence several times per week? Or is it going to be a weekend thing? Hey, probably 3 or 4 weekends out of the month, I'm probably going to go visit those areas. Or is it just going to be when friends and family are in town? If you've never lived in a tourist area before, when your friends and family come visit, and they definitely will, they're going to want to do some of the touristy stuff, which means you get to do the touristy stuff. A lot. I can't tell you how many times I've been to McGuire's, and I love McGuire's. I'm never going to turn that down, but it is something that you've got to think about whenever you're moving to a beach town or a tourist area like we have here. Now, in each one of these sections, I'm going to be talking about a few of these different cities here along the Emerald Coast that surround Destin. I'm not going to hit everything we cover. As I mentioned before, we cover everything from Pensacola to Panama City Beach. I'm not going to hit every single town there, but I am going to hit a few core ones that we notice people keep flocking back to time and time again. So the first one on our list will be the Destin and Miramar Beach and Sandestin area. I'm going to kind of lump them all into one just for purposes of this answer, because we're talking about proximity to the beach and proximity to the tourist activities. Obviously, with Destin, Miramar, and Sandestin, this is as close as you can get to both of those. You're going to have lots and lots of options to be near the water, lots of options to be near touristy stuff, the festivals, Crab Island, whatever the attraction is from, the main area that people tend to visit here while on vacation. That's as close as you can get, is being inside of one of those cities. Now, each one of these is going to have higher energy, with Miramar and Sandestin being resort towns, and Destin being a combination of resort and sort of a tourist hub. Now let's look at Destin's western neighbor, Fort Walton Beach. Fort Walton Beach is going to be a coastal town, so you've got that benefit of being able to walk out onto the beach so long as you're on the island. So Okaloosa Island is a portion of Fort Walton Beach, actually. A lot of people think that's part of Destin, but it's actually Fort Walton Beach. So you do have access to quick water there, but the vibe's going to feel considerably different here when it comes to the touristy stuff. It's going to feel more like a working town here in Fort Walton Beach versus a tourist town. We're still going to get a little bit of the tourism. We're still going to get some impact from that. For the most part, things feel a little bit more routine-based in Fort Walton Beach. Of course, if you head a little bit further north, you'll have Niceville. Niceville is going to feel a lot more residential and a lot less touristy. So you're definitely going to push away from that excitement feeling, the action feeling that you would get in a tourist town, and go for more of a residential town. But it still has great access to water. So for boaters, particularly boaters that don't want to be near all of that action all of the time, Niceville can definitely be a good option. And then, of course, you've got Crestview and Freeport. Freeport kind of being on the same level of Niceville, just a little bit further inland without being too far away. And then you'll have Crestview that, this is going to be a little bit of a trek. For those of you that were okay with a 30 to 45 minute travel time, Crestview can definitely be an option. Both of these are going to be further inland, and that's going to come with its own benefits, pros, and cons that we'll be talking about through the rest of this video. But at a glance, both of those towns are going to offer a lot more space, more bang for your buck, but you're going to have a small trade-off of the extra commute. And so I know I asked you guys how often you plan on visiting or how close you want to be to these items. One thing that I do want to make sure that I mention to you guys is that once you become a local here and you've been living here for a while, your idea of how often you're going to visit the touristy areas, Destin, or going to the water, going to Crab Island, it's probably going to happen a lot less than you originally planned for. At least I know that's exactly what happened to me. When I first moved here, I thought, I'm going to the beach every single day. And when I first moved here, I went to it quite often. In fact, I would take little pit stops off of work, or even during a long lunch break, could go hit the waters and eat, whatever I was having for lunch right there on the sands. And eventually, over time, that started to fade out. So just keep that in mind as you're making big life decisions. So we've got a few more questions that we need to ask ourselves now. First and foremost, how do you feel about seasonal traffic? How do you feel about taking a 20-minute commute and making it a 40-minute commute during certain months of the year? Approximately half of the year, actually. And do you enjoy being near all of the restaurants, the activity, the nightlife, the excitement? Or do you prefer to have a little bit of separation from all of that? Obviously, with the Destin, Miramar Beach, 30A area, you're going to be right in the heart of all of it. And so that activity level, having all the restaurants nearby, all of the things to do, that's going to be constantly in your face. For those of you that like that, awesome. But for those of you that want more of a residential feel and a little bit more of a quiet feel, maybe a different direction might be best. Fort Walton, for instance, is still going to be an active city when it comes to these kind of things, but because it feels more like a working town, the pace moves just a little bit differently in Fort Walton than it does in Destin. Destin, it's closer to what I would call island time. Let's kind of enjoy it a little bit. Let's go out to a restaurant. We're not rushing in and out. In Fort Walton, it doesn't feel like a rush by any means, but it definitely feels like it moves at a faster pace. Then, of course, we've got Niceville that is a lot more calmer, a lot more quiet, and it feels a lot like living in a suburban area or suburban environment. It's not going to move as fast, and it's going to be a little bit more routine-based. Crestview and Freeport, on the other hand, are both going to move fairly slower. They're not going to be influenced very much at all with seasonality or tourism. One of the other things we need to look at is your commute and your daily driving routine. Remember, you're going to be living here full time. This isn't going to be like coming down here for vacation. You're actually going to have things to do, going to the grocery store, going to work. And so the commute time is going to be very important to a lot of people. We talk a lot on this channel about traffic and how that affects things. And even though we're not going to have traffic anything like a big city at all, we still do have traffic. And when you've got a 20-minute drive that turns into a 35-minute drive during certain peak months, when you're living here full time, that could be a little bit frustrating. So where will you be working? Are you going to be in person, or are you a remote worker? Are you retired? Are you even worried about work at all? And are you comfortable driving 20 to 40 minutes regularly? One of the cool things you can do is actually go through each of the areas you might be interested in, or maybe you're planning on living in one area and working in another, and check out what those commute times look like on Google. Now, this isn't going to be an end-all be-all, and it doesn't tell the whole story, but it should give you a pretty clear picture on what you're comfortable with and what you're not. I'll give you an example. When the military moved me here in 2006-ish, the big thing that I was worried about was commute time. This was the number one factor for me by a big stretch. I did not like driving. I used to take a 10-minute drive and be like, holy cow, I can't believe somebody lives this far. And now it's kind of comical, but that's how I thought back then. I was driving an old 1985 Chevy pickup truck with no air conditioning. In summer here in Florida, it's hot. I want to get to my destination fairly quick. I had 2 major Air Force bases that I was going back and forth between a lot with my job, and they're both fairly close to each other. We've got about 4, technically even 5 bases around us, but there were 2 that I was worried about. So I planted my flag smack dab in the center of those 2 in Fort Walton Beach because the commute was so important. If the commute's not important to you at all, you could probably scratch this section, but for a lot of us, it definitely is important. One of the other things to consider is your budget comfort zone. Now, I'm not going to go over the numbers right now, but we do have a section where we'll go over each of the numbers for each of the cities that we've got in line for us today. But one of the things you've got to figure out is what your comfort level is. Are you going to be stretching your budget to get to a certain location? Or are you okay with lowering your budget a little bit or getting in a more comfortable zone and going a little bit further inland? Basically, do you want a smaller home closer to the water, or do you want a larger home a little bit further away from the water? School and community priorities is also something to look at. Even if you don't have kids, school zones typically can influence the price of your home. So even if you don't have kids, it might be something to look at. If you do have children, and that's important to you, that is definitely going to be a factor at play here. And when it comes to the community that you're living in, how do you want that to feel? Do you want it to feel homey, where everybody's waving at each other as you're walking by? Do you want a walkable neighborhood and you can take the kids out on their bikes that have lots of parks and things to do? Or do you want something a little bit more quiet, a little bit more rural? All of these things are going to be super important into your next move. I've got a thought exercise for you. If you guys have a moment, you want to bear with me here. If you've made it this far, you're clearly very serious about this. So here's a thought exercise. Grab a piece of paper if you can. And if not, just do this mentally with your partner. If you're watching this by yourself, just do it mentally in your head. And I want you to rank these 7 things. This is one of the things that we like to do in one of our clarity calls, which I'll be talking about here in a few minutes. But these 7 things, where do these rank? And I'm going to look down at my notes to make sure I don't miss any of them. We've got proximity. How important is proximity? Just rank it number 1 if it's the most important, number 7 if it's the least important. Don't worry, you can change. Nobody's watching you. If you pick it as a 3 and then you need a 3 later, just move them around. But proximity to the action, to the beach, to Crab Island, whatever it is, how important is proximity to you? How important is quiet to you? Whether it's a quiet neighborhood, a quiet town, quiet living, how important is that to you? Number 3 is your budget. How important is your budget? Do you need to stick within it, or are you a little bit more open-ended? Are you at a $200,000 or $300,000 price point where it might be a little bit more difficult? Or do you have free reign to go up to $15 million, for instance, right? The budget, how important is that to you? Go ahead and rank that one. Next would be the space. How much space do you want? Not just space in your home, although that's important, but space between your neighbors, because that's also very important. And then, of course, you've got your commute time. Is commute important? Just like I was telling you guys a story before, I wanted to be in between both of the bases to where I wasn't driving more than 10 minutes. And I chose smack dab in the center of Fort Walton, where it was like almost identical to each base. So for me, that was number 1 when I first moved here. It's no longer as important to me. But for you right now, how important is commute? And number 6 is schools. Where do schools rank on your list? Are they super important? Or are they less important? And lastly, the community feel. Do you need to feel like you're part of a tighter knit community, or are you okay with having a little bit of distance and going to go find your community elsewhere? If you're having trouble ranking these at all, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but you might not be quite ready to move yet. And that's perfectly okay. It's still a good exercise to keep in the back of your mind. The answers to those 7 factors will largely determine the lifestyle that you should probably be in to maximize your enjoyment out here. Now, if you did get through that list and it was fairly easy, you're probably a little bit closer rather than further. So for a lot of you, maybe taking a trip down here to do a little bit of information gathering and checking out some of the towns might be in your future. So I want to talk about what that looks like. First and foremost, if you did decide to come down here on a research trip, I would want you to treat it like that. This is reconnaissance. This isn't a vacation, although you should still have some fun while you're out here, because why not? Probably about once a month or so, I end up shooting a video for people individually. I don't post these out on YouTube, where they're like, hey, I'm kind of interested in these 2 or 3 things. We've been watching you guys for a while. These 2 or 3 towns are interesting to me. Like, what should we do while we're out here? We've got 3 days, and I map out this whole move and stuff like that. Here's what I want to do for you guys, because if you're thinking about doing one of these trips, these little research trips, I want you guys to maximize this as much as possible. And I'm not going to be able to go through every town and everything that I suggest you guys see, but I do want to go over some core principles that might help you in case you guys are too shy to reach out to me. But you can absolutely reach out. As you see here, all of my information's on here, and I can definitely shoot one of these videos for you to make it a little bit more specific to your situation. But here are my little tips for these research trips. Number 1, some of you guys aren't going to like this one at all, but I would suggest not staying at the beach. There's a big comma to that, comma, unless you plan on living on the beach. And then in that case, definitely, get a spot on the beach so that you can see what that feels like and feel what that feels like. And here's why I'm telling you that, because if you book a beach vacation, but you're more of a Freeport person, let's say, but that's where your vibe should probably be, because you want a little bit more quiet, you want more space and bang for your buck, you're going to fall in love in those 3 or 4 days that you're here with the beach lifestyle, and that's going to cloud your normal thinking for how you're going to live here. Vacation and living here are completely different, as our last couple of videos kept alluding to over and over. What you want to do is experience daily life in that area. And it's going to be hard to do while you're staring at the beach from your balcony. Go out there and actually mingle. Get in those areas. If you've got one or two of these towns that you really like, my suggestion is try to find an Airbnb or a short-term rental in one of those areas when you're staying here, or a hotel in one of those areas, so that you can see the traffic patterns and how life moves and just how the overall place feels. And if you're torn between a couple of different towns, split your stay. Stay a few days over here, stay a few days over here. Tip number 2 for a trip down would be test a weekday, a real weekday, not a holiday weekday, a real weekday. Waking up bright and early on a Tuesday to check out what the commute time feels like is going to do a whole lot more for you on this trip than a Saturday sitting on the beach sipping margaritas will. Another suggestion I have is check out some of the places that you might be visiting regularly, whether it's grocery stores or Target, Home Depot, I know I said it wrong, but wherever you tend to visit or you might be visiting for home projects or just, daily shopping, go visit those. See what the traffic patterns are like. See what it feels like while you're there on a Thursday midday or Thursday evening or something like that, when you would generally be there when you're actually here and working. The entire point here is you want to make it feel as close to living here as possible. A little bit less vacation, a little bit more, what does a day-to-day look like? Because it is, again, completely different. And for those of you that like working out, go to one of the gyms in the area. Go check out a couple of the gyms in the area because you might be living near one of those. And that's generally how most of us pick our gym, is just proximity. Prime example, every time my office moves, I get a new gym because it ends up being a little bit further away. And even try out a coffee shop. If you're a coffee drinker and you know you're going to go to coffee in the morning, whatever, go to a coffee shop in the area, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then plan out your whole trip while sitting there sipping coffee. Just get into the lifestyle. And one of my other tips is for those of you that know you're going to have a commute. Let's say that you're a military member relocating and you're going to be working at Eglin Air Force Base and you already know that you kind of want Crestview. Take the drive, go from Crestview to Eglin in the morning, go to the front gate, flip a UE if you need to, or head to the BX on base and do the drive back, and do it during commute hours so you can feel what the day-to-day commute will be like. That's one of the things that I did really early on before I moved off base, because again, I was military, so I was living on base at first. When I got off base, Crestview was the wildly obvious choice from a budget standpoint, which was pretty important to me. It wasn't until I took that drive. And for me, the commute was more important than the drive. Once I took that drive there and back, I was like, there is no way with this old rinkety pickup truck. I have no idea if it's going to break down on me. It was just, I did not like it. And so even though it was high on my list, it was important for me to take that trip so that I knew, hey, that's probably not for me. And of course, you can do the same situation in any way that you want. If you think maybe you're going to be a service person out in Destin, but you're going to be living in Freeport, take the drive and check it out. Maybe you'll find that going to a different area might be a better position for you. My fourth tip for you is explore more than one area. I'm sure some of you guys have been watching me for years and years and years, and you probably have a pretty good idea of exactly where you want to go. My suggestion is check out every town around it. So if you're in Destin, check out Fort Walton, check out Niceville, and check out Miramar Beach, Sandestin area. If you want to be in 30A, check out Panama City Beach, check out the Miramar, Sandestin area, and North Santa Rosa. Just check out all of the little areas, and maybe even Freeport if you're looking in the 30A area, by the way. This way you just get a full picture on what everything else is around you, because sometimes having a 10-minute commute to the place you think you want to live might be better for you than actually living in that area. Tip number 5 for you. Some of you guys will absolutely hate this. Others of you guys will revel in this and just really enjoy it, but talk to people while you're here. I am naturally introverted, despite the fact that I'm on YouTube and I'm in this career of helping people buy or sell. I know. When I got into it, people were like, dude, don't. You're too introverted for this. I'm not kidding. People told me that a lot. But talk to people while you're down here. When you go to get that coffee in the morning, talk to them. Ask them how they like it here, things like that. I'll give you some sample questions here in a minute. But talk to the gym staff if you end up going out to some of the gyms. Talk to parents if you go to a park and, to take a little break and your kids are out there hanging out. You see another parent over there, talk to them. And if you're super brave, talk to the neighbors. Especially if you've got it narrowed down to some of the neighborhoods. If you guys call us and you say, hey, we're going to be in town, we want to check out these two. One of the things I'm going to tell you is which neighborhoods to visit, which parks to visit, and which landmarks or things to do. And then I'll give you some suggestions on restaurants too. While you're at each one of those locations, talk to them. Ask them how long they've been here. Ask them what they love about it, and ask them if there's anything they would have done different. The locals are going to give you their raw, honest feedback on what they think about this. And sometimes looking at it from afar looks perfect. You're like, I love that area. And then you talk to some folks and you're like, ooh, I don't know. A lot of people here are complaining about this one thing. 2 or 3 people mention traffic or, whatever it is. Well, maybe that's something I need to look into further. And tip number 6 for you is to look at some homes while you're down here. Not directly, just go to the open houses. I don't want you to fall in love with anything. Don't go scouring Zillow and trying to get people to go out and show you homes that you think are going to be perfect for you when you're not moving for another year or 6 months. Those houses will be gone. But I do want you to go to some of the open houses, and you can always call us. We'll give you a full list of every open house going on in a certain city or multiple cities if you want. It's real easy for us. But you want this first trip to be about clarity. you don't want to fall in love with a house while you're out here, though, is my point. Okay, so go to the open houses so that you can check what price ranges look like. What do the HOAs look like, if any? What are the levels of HOAs while you're out here? Ask questions to the agent while you're at these open houses. What are the ages of the homes? Are you seeing that in certain towns they skew a little bit older, but you want something newer? Well, that's really important to know. It's not something you will necessarily see looking on Zillow, at least not in mass. Are there any flood zones? Are there any elevations? All of these things are super important, and it helps you get a good idea and a good understanding of that area in all. And my last tip for you on these research trips is this. Woosah. Just slow it down. Give yourself time. This should not be a decision you're making at the airport or in the car while you're driving around Niceville and Destin trying to figure out which one is for you. Definitely have those conversations. Definitely talk through it. Definitely rate pros and cons if you're a pros and cons list kind of person. But don't make any final decisions right away. My suggestion is wait a week, maybe even 2 after you get back and after settling everything and just deciding then, or at least talking it through then. And here are some things to look at. Which areas felt the easiest, where you were like, this town just felt easy to live in? Which ones felt stressful? Which one's kind of, I didn't like that, right? Not from exterior circumstances like, we saw a wreck in this area, so we don't want to live there. Not that, but the overall area in general. And then lastly, which one, after 2 or 3 weeks of being back home, which one can you not get out of your brain? Which one is constantly coming up in your thoughts? The reason why I suggest this is because clarity usually comes a little bit after you leave. Right in the moment, you've got everything kind of going at once. But once you leave and you can kind of settle in a little bit and you're back in your old routine, wherever you're living, all of it starts coming together a little bit and you go, okay, well, based on how I live here and I want to live similarly over here, this town actually is a little bit better. And what I find, so many people end up changing where they originally wanted to move once they do these little trips. Now, if you can't make a trip down here, I totally get it. That's probably 70% of the people that call us every single week is they're not going to be able to come down here. Sometimes they're not able to come down here at all and they've never visited. That's perfectly fine. You can just skip the research trip step. That was just for people that do plan on coming down here to check it out before they move. Now, before you fall in love with a certain city or even a certain neighborhood, I want to talk budget a little bit. I want to talk about how far your money actually goes based on the city so that you guys can make an informed decision and kind of point you in the right direction based on your budget. And we're going to be talking solely from a buying a home standpoint. We're not going to be talking about renting because there's not a whole lot I can help you out with rentals. I can give you guys a list, but I can't go out and help you find properties or anything like that. The property managers in our area are a little bit weird. And we're not just talking about the pricing of homes. We want to talk about the overall cost of ownership in general. So let's talk about this price between the different areas. And we're going to start, of course, with our hub city, Destin. Destin is typically going to lean towards smaller homes on slightly smaller lots, but proximity to the water is pretty good. You're going to have older, more established neighborhoods for the most part, although there are certain areas of town that have newer construction. And you're going to be paying a premium for the proximity to all the stuff, tourist stuff, restaurant stuff, beach stuff, water stuff, Crab Island stuff. You're going to pay a little bit of a premium for it. What does that premium look like? Forgive me as I glance down my notes. I want to make sure that I'm hitting all of these numbers correctly. But in Destin, you'll start with the smaller condos in the low, even sometimes under $200,000 range. This will be your 1-bedrooms, your studios, things like that. Now, of course, this will all change based on condition of the actual property and location, but that's about the floor for Destin. Now, most of the single-family homes that you'll see will typically land in the $500K to about $800,000 range. I don't know why I said K on this one and 1,000 on this one, but you guys get my point. Now, your waterfront and luxury properties, and whether it's a condo or a home, they're going to range all over the place. Could be $2 million, $5 million, all the way upwards of $15 million. We've got a property currently on the market that was on HGTV. I don't remember which show, but it's currently listed at $15 million. And the price of these are going to be dictated by how large of a lot it is, how much beach frontage it's got, is it a condo, what type of condo, what amenities are they offering, so it's going to vary a little bit there. If we are looking solely at median price, meaning kind of smack dab in the center here, we're looking at low to mid 600s in Destin. Now, this does carry a lot of different types of properties. This is condos, waterfront, not waterfront, single family townhome. All of that mixed into one. The median is about 630,000. Now moving on into Miramar Beach and the Sandestin resort areas. This is the resort town just to the east of Destin. You're gonna have a mix of residential as well as resort style properties here. And the price swings are going to be based on proximity. It's the HOA. Are you in a resort? Are you not in a resort? So it is going to fluctuate quite a bit here, but here are the numbers. Condos in the Miramar Beach Sandestin area are typically going to be just beneath 200,000. That's the floor. About 170 to 190 will be the entry level you could possibly get into this area. Luxury properties, on the other hand, will scale all the way up to 10 million. I'll say 10 million plus because that was just as I looked at it today. There was a $10 million property on there, but tomorrow a $15 million property can come up. I think I've seen the highest price in the area around 20 something million. Now, the median price in Miramar is going to be in the mid to low 800 range. And this is a wide range. Again, just like Destin, it's a blend of condos, townhomes, single family homes, luxury, resort style, and just kind of a mix of everything. Now let's go ahead and move on into Fort Walton Beach, where the pricing is a little bit more approachable. It's a little bit easier to stomach. And a lot of this is because it's got some older established neighborhoods. Fort Walton Beach was built up a little bit earlier than a lot of our other areas, and because of some of the benefits and drawbacks, I guess, the pricing's a little bit easier to stomach. But smaller condos will start just under $100,000. I'm not kidding. There was one on the market, I think, at $75,000 or $79,000. These are going to be smaller condos, of course. Your highest active properties here in Fort Walton right now are about $2.5 million. I have seen it go a little bit above that. These are going to be your waterfront luxury, right on the corner of a bayou or something with a lot of waterfront. The median sold price in 2025 was in the low to mid 300s. I would actually expect this to generally be a little bit higher, but that is what the numbers stated across the board. And this is for everything condos and single family. If I were to put just single family in there, I'm sure that would creep up just a little bit. This offers, basically Fort Walton offers a good entry point into being in a coastal town without paying the prices that you saw in the other two coastal towns that we just talked about. Now, as we move a little bit further inland and go into Niceville, Niceville's got very strong demand, particularly around their school zone. Schools seems to be the biggest topic when anybody wants to move to Niceville. Somebody says, I want really great schools. I'm like, okay, cool. From what I hear from my clients, because I'm not allowed to give that opinion as a licensed agent, I could actually get in trouble, but the opinions of my clients are Niceville or Navarre now the last couple of years, but it used to always be Niceville for about the past decade. Niceville's going to feel a lot more residential, as I mentioned before, and they've got a good balance of price to space. You're kind of getting a big footprint in Niceville, but the price definitely jumps up a little bit, at least compared to Fort Walton Beach. So let's look at those numbers. The lowest property is currently in the Niceville area in the high 100s, so 180 and 190. These are for condos. There's one particular condo building that's actually fairly nice for what it is that offers these condos in this price range. Of course, they're a little bit smaller. Now, the highest listings are currently at 3.8 million is kind of the high end. So that's the floor and the ceiling, about 200 to about 3.5 million or 3.8 million. It's a large waterfront home again, lots of waterfront water frontage. The median price is around the mid 400s. So that's kind of what you can expect as like an average or a median. Niceville often appeals to people that want proximity to the water. They want good schools, but they don't want the noise. They don't want not noise like actually decibels, but like noise of being near a tourist town. And then just to Niceville's east, which is Freeport, again, slightly inland, but not super deep like Crestview. We'll talk about Crestview here in a moment. This is probably the biggest growing market. If I was worried about equity and equity only, it's Freeport all day. 5 years ago, if you guys go back to some of our early videos, 5-6 years ago here on YouTube, I was saying Navarre. I'm like, get in Navarre. I think Navarre is finally caught up to where it's kind of supposed to be. And now Freeport's the up and coming thing. So a lot of new construction, a lot of new builders out there, great incentives, by the way. So if incentives are your thing, you don't want to put a lot of cash down. You just want to move in real easy, brand new home, like really good prices here in Freeport. And it's kind of a good middle ground between space and price. It's a little bit pricier than Crestview, definitely a little bit cheaper than Niceville, Destin, Miramar Beach, stuff like that. So the median price is around the high 300s. That's median, okay? So you're looking at 350 to 400,000 kind of average, if you will. There were several properties under 200,000. A lot of these were, mobile homes, manufactured, stuff like that. And the highest listing was around 3.25 million. Obviously, a much larger footprint of a home, a little bit of land beneath it. So this is a great area for people that want to kind of be near the Destin 38 areas, but they don't want to spend that kind of money. They're okay with the 10 to 25 minute drive, give or take, depending on where you're at in Freeport. And lastly, our furthest inland city that we're talking about today will be Crestview. Crestview is going to be where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. There's a couple other towns that you can technically get a little bit more bang for your buck, but it's barely noticeable for the amount that's in Crestview. For me, like that's sort of the thing. Milton's great too. It'll be very similar. Milton, Pace, Defuniak Springs will all be fairly similar. But Crestview is a good kind of central point because of everything that it's got. But more square footage for your money. You're looking at larger lots, and the trade-off is, of course, a longer drive. It can take you 40 to 50 minutes sometimes to get to the nearest beach. Realistically, 30 to 40 if you're in the heart of Crestview, but if you're like really north Crestview, it'll take you even longer. Let's talk about pricing. The lowest price was around 30,000. That's an anomaly, okay? And typically anything under the 100,000 range, which there were a few, I think there were 5 or 6 underneath 100K. These were mobile homes, manufactured homes, and things that needed a lot of work, like complete teardowns or close to it. The highest listings in Crestview the highest listing was at 1.5 million. I've actually seen higher than this. There was a 3-something million, 3.1 a few years ago. But this 1.5 million, it was just a 2,000 square foot home, but it came with 113 acres. And it was all sorts of acreage, streams and forest, whatever, wooded areas, I guess, better than forest. And that's kind of on the high end there at the 1.5. Median price is around the low 300. So for bang for your buck, definitely Crestview is where it's at. And this is very popular, as you can imagine, with people that are prioritizing their home and actually getting a lot for that over the proximity to the beach. All right, so those are the prices of the actual homes, but there's still a few things we've got to consider. And the first one of those things is insurance costs. So how close you are to the coast is going to influence your insurance quite a lot. Just the distance alone. That's going to change your homeowner's insurance, which includes your wind coverage, which is what most people think is called hurricane coverage. We just call it wind coverage here in Florida. And then, of course, any flood considerations you might have will also increase that. And if you're closer to the water, you might have to consider flood options more than somebody else that's more inland. But you're not going to completely avoid flood zones just because you're further inland. There are flood zones in Crestview and Freeport and Niceville. Niceville's a waterfront town, so I guess that one's kind of obvious. But all of those things get taken into consideration and can change your insurance. And there's a lot of factors that go into insurance too: the type of roof, the shape of the roof, how old the roof is. I'm just using the roof because it's an easy one, but impact windows and your entryways, your garage doors, your front doors, stuff like that. Like all of these things get taken into effect. And so this can change your insurance quite a lot. Not every property is the same with insurance. You can have very similar properties, even sitting on the exact same street, built similarly, and they could be completely different on their insurance based on a lot of different factors. So it's definitely something to consider, but for the most part, closer to the water, probably the higher the insurance generally. And then, of course, we've got to consider HOAs. Now, we're not super heavy into HOAs, but we do have them out here. Certain areas and certain towns have more of them than others, but this is definitely an expense to consider as well. For instance, some of the beach-adjacent communities, they're going to have a higher HOA in general, whether they're offering a lot of amenities or not, or they're helping with maybe short-term rental management, or they're in a HOA that allows short-term rental management. They typically tack on an HOA there. It's a great way for the developer to make some extra, for the HOA to make some extra money, and they know that people will pay it, especially if it's a cash-flowing asset. So that is one thing to consider, but I know a lot of people get hung up on HOAs, and stop you there in case you're one of those folks that you're like, absolutely not. If you call us and you say, HOA, absolutely not, I'm not doing it, just remember you're cutting out all HOAs. I'm not even going to show them to you. I'm not going to send them to you. And that includes some of the small ones. So I'll give you an example. That first house that I bought that I referenced to earlier, there was an HOA there, a starter home. It was like, I don't know, $130,000 short sale that I bought, and it was still in an HOA neighborhood. That HOA was $20 per year. But if you tell me you don't want HOAs, I'm taking that out of there. So just make sure that you really know that you don't want HOAs. But if it's like, I don't want a high HOA, okay, cool, I got that. But some of the HOAs will give you a lot of amenities, and it actually makes it worth it. We just did a video a few weeks ago about the Holly by the Sea area of Navarre. It's a large one. I think their HOA is somewhere between $550 and $600 per year. It's about $50 a month. And it comes with a 20-something acre convention center thing that has like RV spots and this whole complex that has gyms and indoor pools, outdoor pools, pickleball, tennis. It's got so much out there for that really tiny amount. And if you don't want an HOA, we're not going to be showing that to you, and you might miss out on something that might not be that bad. But if you've had a bad experience with an HOA, I totally get it. We'll completely eliminate them from your search. And the last thing on the home affordability front is property taxes and homestead. You guys have, if you've been watching me for any decent amount of time, you've heard me say these next 2 or 3 things many times. Number one, we don't have state income tax here. Big bonus. Okay, that's awesome. You're working for somebody, that income tax, they're taking it right out of your paycheck. We don't have to worry about that here because we get enough money from our tourism. So thank you for anybody who's visited here. We appreciate you. We don't have to pay as much in taxes. And now if you guys are moving down here, you get that benefit as well. Number 2 is homestead exemption. If you move your residency down here to Florida and you stay here a half of the year, 181 days, I believe it is what it needs to be, then at that point, you can homestead the property. You do have to change over your residency completely, so your driver's license and your vehicle tags. And once you do that, you can file for it, and it'll knock your taxes down quite a lot. And then lastly on this is the property taxes do change by county, township, city. So you could be in one area of town and your taxes can be different than in another area of town, and knowing where those are can make a big difference. So if you're ever really close on your debt to income ratio or anything like that when you're looking to get your loan, just notify us and we'll just make sure that we're running those numbers. We're always going to run them for you anyway to make sure that you're comfortable with your payment and where all of the money and everything is going. Whew. All right. Now that we've gone through all of those things, let's start building some structure around this. Let's start building a timeline. What does it look like? And I've got some questions for you guys to kind of answer for yourself. Obviously, you can't answer them to me. You can in the comments if you want, but when are you moving? Is this going to be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? We need to figure out what your target window is. It's going to be very important to the timeline, right? Like if you want to be in your next home in 3 months, pause this video immediately and call me right here. Text me something like that. We need to get going. Like you're kind of in crunch time. I typically tell people reach out as early as you need something, but don't wait until you're 6 months. Like 6 months is the fastest timeline I generally suggest people to reach out to. So if you're looking at it right now and you're like, hey, 6 months from now, I plan on being in my new home in the beautiful Emerald Coast, and you plan on using us, I would suggest you start talking to us now or very soon so we can start getting to know you, getting to know what you're looking for and things like that. But what's your timeline looking like? 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And why? Is it a job-driven move? Are you retiring? You just want a change of scenery? Different schools? Are you kind of nearby in another town that you just want to move over? Like, what's the situation? And do you need to time this with the school year? You have kids in school, you don't want to disrupt them midway through the year and kind of mess up their academics, and now they're trying to learn a new school and also new teachers and all of this other stuff. Is that going to be an important factor? And do you need to worry about a lease? This is one of the first questions we're going to ask you on our clarity call, which I'll talk about here in just a moment, is, when's your lease end, or do you have a house to sell? And if you do have a house to sell, what's that situation looking like? A lot of people think, one of the most common things I hear is it's the most beautiful home ever. I'm sure it is. and it's going to sell instantly. And then sometimes it doesn't, right? Markets are different all over the country. So that's going to play an important role as well. You've got a house on the market. You don't want to be homeless for too long. You've got to time this well to where you're finding the house. Here's the good news on this is if you do have a house on the market and you're ready to go look at homes or as soon as it goes under contract, you can generally find a home in one visit, right? Or one house hunting trip. If we're doing it virtually for you, if you're doing it in person, either way. The way that we've got our system, we really narrow down what you're looking for in our clarity call, which again, I'll talk about here in a second. And so we already know what you're honed in on, and we can hone in on the best 3 to 5 homes in the area that you want with all of the features that you want. And almost every time your home's in that. So the good news is it doesn't take too long for that portion of it. And there's some lead up work that we want to do to make sure that we're getting all of that information and really honing in on what you want. All right, I know we're just talking about looking at homes, but let's answer that question. When should we start looking at homes? First and foremost, browsing casually, you should for sure be doing. I think this is just really good to get a good understanding of pricing, particularly in the areas that you're very interested in. This might shape your decision a little bit. You'll start seeing the ages of homes, the layouts, the styles, things like that. So casually browse all you want. You can go to emeraldgrouphomes.com. If you do go there, one of my team members will probably reach out to you. Just be nice to him. He's just trying to help you guys out. He's not going to push you guys into anything or anything like that. His entire job is making sure that you get the information you need. Just tell him, hey, I've been watching you guys on YouTube. Mongo told me to start casually searching, and he'll just kind of reach out from time to time just to see how things are going. If you don't even want that, you can stay on Zillow, stay on wherever you're at, but browse casually. I think that's a very, very important part of this. But there's one really big caveat to this. Do not get emotionally attached to properties so early. We do quite often, more than I would like, get calls from somebody that says, hey, I'm a year out, but I found this property. I really love it. And we start walking through everything and they can't make a move on. Not that they don't want to, they just literally could not. But they're like, I absolutely want this one. Can you call them and tell them that, I'll be there in a year and stuff like that? So here's what I can promise you. If you found something you like now, you will find something you like later. I promise, I promise, I promise. So no matter what your timeline is, try not to get emotionally invested too early. So when should the actual home shopping portion begin? Well, generally, there's a few things that need to happen first. We need to understand your timeline. We've got to have the financing ready to go. We'll talk all about this in the clarity call, by the way. And then, your budget, and make sure that we're staying within it and that we know exactly what you're looking for. We want to time this to where we're doing it. We're not doing it too early and we're not doing it too late, because we do it too early and it's going to create pressure, right? And a lot of the sellers aren't going to take it. You try to do a closing 3 months out. They're like, no, I'll just wait for a buyer that's ready right now. And in 3 months, if you're still ready, then come back to me. That's the most common thing I hear, because we do have people reach out and that's what they want. They're like, hey, I want to start going after this. We also sometimes have people reach out when they're a year out and they get emotionally invested in a property. And then they say, hey, can we get them to kind of pause for a little bit? Can you call them and see if they'll wait for us for a year because we just love this house? They're not going to usually do that. So we do it too early, it creates unnecessary pressure, because there's always going to be new homes that match your criteria. That's great for you. But we do it too late. We start home shopping too late. Now panic is setting in. Your house is under contract and it's closing in 15 days. You got to find something. You're going to be homeless. You're going to have to spend all this money on a hotel. It causes a lot of chaos and panic. So the sweet spot is 3 to 6 months out is typically when I would suggest you guys reach out to us to start the clarity conversation so that we can start really narrowing down what you're looking for. All right, the next big question is, when do we get pre-approved? Well, this is something we would talk about in the clarity call, but typically about 60 to 90 days out. This is early enough that you can get the best rate. A good loan officer, by the way, which we've got several on this that help us out on this team. They're not like part of us, they're their own independent person. But they do great and they do wonders for us. They'll watch the rate for you. And when the rate drops, they'll re-lock you in down here. And then if it bounces back up, because rates go like this all throughout the day. This isn't like you hear it and you're like, oh, this week the rates are this. They're going like this day to day, right? They're hovering between, whatever the interest rates are. But they can lock you in at the lowest. And if it dips beneath that, they can lock you in again. But if you wait until the last second, they have to lock you in right where you're at. And then they don't have as much time to see those dips, right? So you might not get the best rate that way. So one of the best ways to get the best rate is to get it a little bit earlier. But most of them only last for 60 to 90 days. So we don't want to go too far in front of that. If we're a year out, we don't want to get pre-approved today. Starting the process a month or 2 or even 3 before you actually plan on going home shopping will also help you kind of watch those rates so that you'll see exactly what it's looking like. And you can see the overall rate environment, which just gives you a little bit of extra information. All right, I've been talking about this clarity conversation for half this dang video. Let's talk about what this is. This is a kind of a consultative process. You guys reach out to us. You're 3 to 6 months out usually. We can do it earlier than that, but if we're outside of that 6-month window, I'm going to want to do it again with you, or one of my team members will want to do it again with you when you're within that window, so it's fresh, and because things change. And so when things change, we want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information. Here's what the clarity conversation is about. We're trying to narrow down your area by asking you questions about lifestyle, vibe, how you want to live here, things like that. We want to clarify, I kind of jumped the gun on this, but your lifestyle decisions and priorities. We want to align your budget, make sure that we're looking in the right spot, that we're not, looking outside of our range or looking outside of what we want, right? And then build the timeline backwards. We're going to reverse engineer this timeline. Okay, cool. You've got a house. It's on the market. Here's the thing. The second it goes under contract, pick up the phone, call me. We need to go home shopping. We need to reverse engineer this whole thing so that we take all of that pressure off of you. And then we can identify potential obstacles early. Here's my biggest goal with this. Moving's already stressful. Moving halfway across the country, like most of you guys that are watching me are doing, is even more stressful. You're picking up your family, or you're moving solo. Maybe you've never lived here. Maybe you haven't moved in a few years, at least not across the country. It's stressful. My entire purpose, one of my most important purposes to me, is taking as much of that stress off of you as possible. My entire team is built around it. We're full service here. We're going to do absolutely everything we can to make sure we're pulling all that stress on off of you. You guys already have enough to worry about, so I'm trying to pull that off. And the clarity conversation is the first real big step outside of watching us on YouTube and kind of really getting to know the area. But it's the first real big step between you and I together on Zoom or in person, depending on how it goes, where we're hammering all of this stuff to make sure that we're in alignment and make sure that we can take the stress off of you, and most importantly, put you in the right spot based on the lifestyle you want. So in this meeting, we'll go over quite a lot. We'll go over exactly what you're looking for in a home. We'll go over some lifestyle stuff, how you want to live in the home. That's going to help us direct the conversation. A lot of times you guys have been watching us for a long time, so you already kind of know exactly where you want to be. But this just makes sure we're all on the same page moving forward and that we can make the process as smooth as possible. Here are a couple of things that I see that slows the relocation process down a little bit. And this is going to be kind of a nice segue into the biggest mistakes I see people make, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. So if you've been waiting this whole time, this is a really big portion that you don't want to miss as well. But some of the things that I see that slow relocations down the most. Number one, waiting too long to talk through the plan, to actually build a structure, to build a plan, waiting too long. So if you call me, say, hey, my house closes in 15 days. I've got to get into something now. We waited too long. There's extra stressors. There's nothing I can do about that. The process to close a home takes 30 days usually, maybe up to 40, 45, but generally 30 is kind of the default, right? There's extenuating circumstances where it might not take that long, or it could take longer. But for the most people, that's how long it's going to take. And so if we miss that timeline, there's going to be added stress, and that's something I'm not shooting for. Another thing is not aligning with all of the decision makers. And I'll talk about this in the next section as well, but that's a very important part that will slow the relocation process down. Underestimating the timeline for you selling your home. This is a big one. I know I kind of touched on this a couple of times. This is one of the most common things I'm constantly hearing. Well, house is on the market. It's going to sell super fast. 9 months later, they're still waiting for this thing to sell. And sometimes it's the opposite. Hey, our market's moving pretty slow. It's probably not going to move right away. I just wanted to start the conversation. And 4 days later, they're like, we just got a full price offer. We're coming down. We need to go. It's a cash offer, So not underestimating the time to sell your current home is a big one. And this is a hard one too, because we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how long it's going to take. And lastly, confusion between a dream and the budget, right? We all have this amazing dream of what we want here. And I say all the time that buyers are always reaching for the next thing. And it doesn't matter what your budget is. Your budget's $300,000, you're reaching, you want a little bit more. And the same thing as if you're in a $3 million budget, we're all reaching to the next thing. It's just, I think, just human nature, but making sure that there's no confusion between the dream and what the actual budget is. And the budget doesn't mean you can or can't afford it. It just means what's a budget that you feel comfortable in. That's the big thing that I want. Because if you guys come down here with this amazing dream of living here on the Emerald Coast, and you put yourself in a house where it doesn't allow you any additional income to go do the amazing stuff we have out here, then, well, heck, what was the point, right? So just to go over the flow of everything real quick before we get into the biggest mistakes, the overall flow of everything would be watch the market and do your research. You're doing that now through YouTube. You're probably casually, some of you guys are probably casually watching Zillow and things like that. Then visit strategically if you're able to, if it allows it, if your schedule allows it, if timing allows it, then visiting strategically is a really good option and kind of a nice excuse to come down here and visit the Emerald Coast anyway. Number 3, have that clarity conversation with us. This is where things start kind of picking up momentum a little bit. Now we're talking through everything, having that clarity conversation. Then getting pre-approved would be the next step. Then a second visit, or for some of you guys, a first home tour thing where we're going out and looking at homes either in person or virtually. We do everything virtually as well through, FaceTime, Zoom. We've got a bunch of different products so we can make sure that we're walking through the tour with you, because a lot of our people can't be here in person at all, especially our military members, as I alluded to earlier in this video. And then lastly, execute on a property. And then, of course, we'll talk about, in our clarity conversation, we talk about what that looks like as well, and the timeline and some of the stuff we can expect. And then there's a ton of communication in the interim for that. Most relocation stress isn't caused by the market. It's caused by assumptions, and it's caused by not following the process. So we've got a very easy to follow process. We'll walk you through it. At any time, you guys can give us a call here. But now let's talk about the biggest mistakes I see from people. Overvaluing beach proximity. Huge one. Huge. I want to be on the beach. I need to have my coffee on the beach every single morning. And then sometimes that's great. Sometimes you've got the budget for it. Everything's clean. Everything's great. And then in other times it puts people in a really rough spot, because now they're trying to fit this dream of having coffee on the beach every morning into a property, right? So they're, I want to be in a single family home, but maybe the budget doesn't allow for that, but I want my coffee on the beach every morning. So now I'm settling for a condo. There's not necessarily anything wrong with that if the beach proximity portion is stronger than all the other things we talked about today, because it's stronger and you're like, cool, I'm getting this. I'm making a sacrifice. It's a give and take. But a lot of times what I see is somebody does that, and then a year later, 2 years later, they're calling and they're going, hey, you know what? I think it makes more sense. I'm not even going out there that often. I'm sipping my coffee on the balcony. I'm not even going down there into the sand. And half the year, it's a little bit too chilly for me because now I'm a Floridian and I can't handle the cold, because we cannot. Something like that. And then it's like, hey, let's go ahead and sell this and move a little bit further inland, or even sometimes inside of the same town. We just 5 minutes away is perfectly okay, so that it can give them some breathing room and get them more space or what have you. So overvaluing a beach proximity is a big one. Number 2, ignoring the surrounding areas too early. So another really big one, particularly people that have visited Destin, they have this Destin vacation dream in their head. They had a phenomenal time on vacation and they want to live that life forever. The thing is, we have routines now, and we have things that we're doing. We're dropping off kids and we're grocery shopping. We're not in vacation mode. It's different. In vacation mode, so much of that stuff's gone. We're going out to eat for every single meal. We're walking around everywhere, biking, and it's fun and exciting, but that's not what the day-to-day routines are about. So ignoring the surrounding areas too early is definitely a big mistake that I see. Number 3, making the very first visit to the area the big decision visit. For a lot of you guys, there's nothing we can do about this, okay? You're moving down here. You've only got a small window. But for some people, they've got the option to come down here. And maybe they've never even vacationed down here, but they see the videos and they're like, well, I've always wanted to live in this area. I've heard it's really cool. They come down here and they're like, I've got 2 days to find this. And because of that, they want to see 17 properties in 6 hours. We're just not able to do that, okay? We generally limit our properties when able to 3 to 5 per chunk, okay? We can do as many chunks as we want, but try to give yourself a little bit of breathing room so that we can check out the area and we can make sure that we're getting you in the right property and not just forcibly rushing this. The fourth mistake that I see is confusing approval with comfort. I talked about this multiple times in the video already. I just wanted to make sure it was in here, but that's where the lender says, hey, you're good up to $750,000. We reached that budget and the place doesn't have as good insurance and taxes as we were hoping for. And it just kind of makes us what we call house poor in the industry, putting all of our money into the house. And now we don't have as much expendable income to do the fun things that we want. Mistake number 5, I alluded to this one already too, so I'm not going to hit it too hard, but not aligning with all decision makers early. If you guys call us for a clarity call, I'm going to ask that all decision makers are on that call. And if I show up to it or my team shows up to it and all the decision makers are not on the call, we're just going to go ahead and end it, because playing telephone back and forth always causes problems. I have never had a deal go smooth when we're playing telephone with one of the parties, because somebody's relaying it, it doesn't get relayed right. Now one person's upset. Now we're trying to, hey guys, like everything's fine. Here's where we're at. We're trying to recover from that. So we want to make sure all of the decision makers are on these calls. And then on top of that, making sure that you guys are aligned. If there are decision makers, let's say it's a husband and a wife, which is most common, right? And you're both a big decision maker, and one of you guys wants a condo on the water and the other one wants a single family home. It's not good. If we're not aligned, everything's going to be a fight. If one of you guys are focused on schools, another one's focused on budget, somebody's focused on proximity to the beach, other one's price of the home, somebody wants a 2-story home, the other person wants a 1-story, all of these are going to cause conflict. So we just need to narrow those down, and we can help you do that in the clarity call as well, but it is something we need to talk about. And then the last of the mistakes that I see is waiting too long to get structured plan in place. And again, I kind of hit on this multiple times, but it's that important. Okay. If you're not having that structured call, that clarity call with us, and you're trying to do it all on your own, you're probably a high analytic. I get it. I'm a high analytic too. I'm a little bit introverted, high analytic. Like I want to see all the numbers. I want to research aggressively. I want to see reviews on everything. I want to see all of it. I get it. But it comes to a point where we need to do a structured plan call with somebody that knows what they're doing in this area based on all of this, and that does this day in and day out. And that's exactly what we do. We help people. Our main specialty is people relocating from out of the area. That's why we have the YouTube channel. That's why our social media looks the way it does. If you guys follow us on any of the social media, that's our main thing, right? And so we want to make sure that everybody's aligned, everybody's looking good, and that we have that structured call so that you're not researching endlessly. You're not watching 40 videos a week trying to understand everything and getting conflicting information and then jumping on a ChatGPT trying to figure out which is right. And then maybe you don't prompt it right and it doesn't give you a great response or what have you. Or comparing neighborhoods through social media posts or what you can find up on Google. All of those things can happen if we don't just have the structured call, which is what the structured call is for, the clarity call. At the end of the day, most of the stress I see from relocating has nothing to do with the actual relocating itself. It's being planned poorly or not having a plan at all. If you've made it this far in the video, holy cow, thank you. I know this was a lot of information, but I wanted one video that we can always point back to. So, this is a great one to save if you're not quite ready to call us or you're calling somebody else, but you want to make sure that you're getting all of the information. It's perfectly fine. The clarity call is also free. You guys can do that. There's no expectation for you to sign on with us or anything like that. But if you made it this far, you're probably very, very serious about moving. So you guys can reach out to us, call, text, email, find us on Facebook or Instagram or what have you. We're Emerald Group, brokered by LPT, just about everywhere. So following our process, following our structure, following our systems, I promise you we're going to take a lot of that stress off and be able to help you guys to the best of our abilities get exactly where you need to be based on what your dreams and your goals are. And if you aren't quite in this stage where you want to reach out to us, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to throw up our guide here, right here on the screen. It's just a QR code if you're watching on the TV. You can whip out your phone, take a picture of it. It's a free guide. I think it's like 38 pages, and it breaks down each area in depth. It is a little bit lengthy to read, but we want to give you guys some good information on that. So you guys can get that and get some extra information about the area and save this video for when you are ready. You can come back to it. And then this way you'll kind of get refreshed on everything before you reach out to us if you'd like to. Or of course you can just always reach out anytime you need. Just say, hey, I watched this one video that said I should reach out to you. There's a bunch of information on there. Can you walk me through it again? And we'll walk you through our whole process and make it nice and easy for you. I'm curious, for anybody that did make it this far, one of the things I was thinking about putting together was kind of a breakdown of everything we talk about in this video and a nice little checklist and guide of like, hey, here's where you're at. Here's the things that you should be focusing on. If something like that would be beneficial to you, let me know. Just place it down in the comment. Just put something like a relocation guide or something like that. And yeah, just put relocation on there. If you just put the word relocation, I'll know that you guys would like a guide like this. And my team and I will create it. And then I'll go into those individual comments individually and let you know the link so that you can go back to it. Because I think that would be pretty cool if we broke this down as like a nice little checklist so that you can kind of easily see everything. So if that would be helpful, let me know in the comment section. And if not, you don't have to say anything. It's perfectly fine. But we would like you to say hi. So anyway, we do videos every single week, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on Tuesdays. I will see you guys in the next one.